Welcome everyone to another Maine SBDC webinar. My name is Kelsey Reardon and I'm with the state team hosted by USM, and we're laughing. I've done, a couple hundred webinars in the last 2 years, but this is the very first one from our office. So we are coming to you live from the Maine SBDC office. So if there are some technical issues, we're all learning today, so we'll just do our best along the way, but we are very lucky to yet again have Corey Zimmerman of the Wander Web here to help us go over some copywriting tips and tricks. So I know I've already told her, but I personally am very excited for this topic. So I'm glad to see everyone's here to be proactive and get some of that. We went over SEO recently, so this is all going to be tied together. If you have any questions today, go ahead and stick those in the chat. We'll have time at the end to answer anything that doesn't get covered. Also, you're welcome to respond to any email that you've ever gotten from me, and that'll end up in the same place. So if questions come up later, feel free to reach out. I'll be sending out a follow-up email that will include the slides and a link to the recording and any contact or any resources we mentioned today, and all of our contact information. So Corey's information will be there as well. If you're not familiar with the Maine SBDC, we are the Small Business Development Centers, and we are here to help with your small business needs. So if we can't answer your questions, we could certainly find someone who can. We offer no cost, confidential business advising. So our advisors are throughout the state. We have centers throughout the state, and we generally cover by geography, but we are still doing much of our advising virtually. So we could connect you with someone in your industry or someone who might have more experience with your particular problem you're facing. So we're happy to help however you need. And it's easy to get set up. There's a button on our website. It says request advising, and that's the fastest way to get into our system, but that link will also be in my follow-up email. So you'll easily be able to get set up there. Like I said, if you have any questions at all, stick those in the chat. Also, feel free to introduce yourself. So let us know who you are, maybe where in the state you are. We'd love to hear, like, what's your writing level comfort? Are you a wordsmith? Do you feel like you've just got a pop quiz? How do you feel about writing? And hopefully this will help you no matter how you feel about writing. Great, Corey just stuck her contact information in the chat, so everybody can see that. Should have popped up right down there below. Feel free to respond. And otherwise, I think we're all ready to get started. So I'll pass it over to Corey.
Thank you, Kelsey. Good morning, everybody, or early afternoon, brunch afternoon. My name is Corey. I am the founder and owner of Wander Web, which is a web design and search engine optimization agency located in Maine. We focus on helping businesses scale, and I have some certifications around process improvement and systems, which are my true love, which is part of why our web design services are so fun to work on. It's because often they're integrated with processes and improving systems and operations in businesses, if you do it right. So today we're going to talk about copywriting, and this is copywriting with a W, not copywriting the legal term. Copywriting is sales writing. And the ability to write good copy is probably one of the most powerful tools of persuasion out there. Good storytelling and good writing. It's more important than the products that you sell. It's more important than your website or any of your digital assets, because persuasive copy can move people to action, right? It can increase your sales and decrease your costs if you really can do good, solid copy. So I would say copywriting, in my opinion, and in the opinion of many business mentors out there, is the most important strategy in marketing your business. So where do you start with copywriting? The most important thing for you to know, and if you've ever worked with me or attended any of my seminars, I mention this a lot. Start with your customer. Always start with your customer. Ask yourself, what matters most to my customers? How do my products make my customers' lives better, right? So learning your customer base and what appeals to your customer and meeting them where they are with the words that are important to them and appeal to them are very, very important in getting your message across effectively, okay? The next thing that's important about copywriting is your brand voice, right? And if you haven't heard of brand voice, it is how you make your customers and people who encounter your brand feel, right? So we want to pop them right in the feels when we're using our words and our images and the way that we present ourselves. And that's how you set yourself apart from the pack, right? It's how you make your customers feel. And there's a book on branding that I read that talked about Nike. And I'll just give this as an example. So Nike is a very established brand. And you know exactly, Nike doesn't own hotels, right? But if Nike opened a hotel, you know exactly the vibe that hotel would have. That's branding, right? Even though they don't have hotels, if they were to open a hotel, you know that the person at the front desk would probably be wearing a lanyard and some really cozy or comfortable sweat wear, like workout wear. They'd be in Nike sneakers. The floors probably would be like a gym style floor. The colors would be brighter, right? That's what you would expect from Nike. Nike doesn't have to tell you that because they've branded themselves so well. They've branded themselves so well that they can use a slogan like just do it and you immediately think of Nike, right? So that is branding. How do you want your customers to feel? How do you make them feel? So some businesses want their customers to feel inspired or empowered, right? Some businesses want customers to feel cozy and warm. And so it just think about what your customer wants to feel as a result of being connected with you and sort of build your brand voice around that. Okay. And don't be boring, okay? This is something that I see a lot is submitting or writing your content that goes on your website, on your flyers, in your assets, like a paper that you submitted for school. And I hear this a lot as a web designer. So I'll work with clients because we include copy in our websites because there's so much science to it. And I often hear, oh, I do this and I can write my own copy. And every single time I just want to put my hand over my face and do a face palm because I know that very rarely am I going to get copy that's usable. It's going to be written in a language that really doesn't appeal to customers and more from the perspective of the seller than the buyer, right? And so as a business owner, your job is to get into the buyer persona once you figure out who your customer is, get into their mind. Think of it like an acting exercise, right? And get into their mind and talk the way that they speak and write in a conversational style in the way that would appeal to them. So talking about conversational style in almost every situation, conversational style is where it's at. And how do you know if you've achieved conversational style? Does anyone have any ideas about tricks to make sure that you're writing in a conversational style? I have a fail-proof trick that works every single time, and I'm going to tell you, but I'd like if you could drop in the chat along with your contact information, what you think a good trick is for making sure that your writing is in conversational style. Yep, you guys got it. Good job, Michelle, Jermaine, Kelsey, Jeffrey, yes. It's read your content right out loud. All right, read it out loud. If it doesn't sound like it's something you would say, you probably need to revise that content. All right, if it's not something that your friend would say to you, or you wouldn't say that sounds like you, or you wouldn't say to a customer when speaking with them, then you probably need to go back and just revise that content a little bit. And some more tricks on writing is if you emphasize something when you read it out loud, probably emphasize it in with italics, right? If you really want to push a word or make it stand out, use your bold. There's nothing wrong with making things stand out in a different way in your content. Later in this slide deck, I'm going to show you some examples of how to make things stand out visually with conversational copywriting. But for now, just think about how that would apply to your brand, right? So if you would mutter something under your breath, put it in parentheses, right? In your copy, put it right there. Don't hesitate to add in a little joke or a reference to your customer, right? If you know your customer really well and you know that your customer is probably a Gilmore Girls lover, you could probably say, Lorelai would say, Lorelai says in your copy, right? And that could be a brand strategy that you use, like Lorelai says, and you could use that over and over again in your copy to pull things out and make them stand out, right? These are just examples, but I'm giving you the context whereby you can apply it. Okay. Creating content your audience actually reads is a strategy that takes a little bit of thinking outside the box. Organizing your content into readable chunks with headlines that pop out is something that is very unique to conversational copywriting or content copywriting, right? Sales copywriting. So creating easily readable chunks, your sentences should only be a couple sentences long, your paragraphs, should only be a couple sentences long, 3 at the most. Tighten them up, get rid of those filler words, and make your headlines intriguing, okay? And I think in our copywriting, our SEO class last week, we really talked about how to make headlines intriguing and what the priority of the headline is. All your headline's job is to do is to get people to read the next line. That's it, right? If the next line or the next thing in your content is a call to action, your headline's job is to lead them to that call to action. That is it. The first line of your content its only job is to get them to the second line of the content. The second line of the content, its only job is to get them to the third. All right. So think about this as strategically. So using bold and italics are great ways to pull out content that you want to emphasize, because people skim online digitally, if your assets are digital. If they're print, they'll read them more like a traditional paper, but online people skim, right? And if you think about a list, bullets work really, really well because they're skimmable, right? Just a pro tip, when you write a bulleted list, put your most important things at the top and the bottom, because that's where the eye stops, right? The middle is that lost land. So that's a copywriting tip that you can take away from today. And love to break those rules. Copywriting or sales writing is very different than the writing you learned in school. Okay, so spelling is always important. Misspellings are never great for your brand, but grammar typically isn't as important. And so you can kind of throw those grammar rules out the browser window, right? You can end with maybe of, or whatever it is that you think is going to work for your customer. But you can stop a sentence mid-sentence and finish the sentence on the next line, kind of like poetry, right? Poetry is meant to be read as well as read visually, as well as read aloud by reading down, not across, right? And so think about it that way. There's nothing wrong with breaking things up or putting one word in your content as its own line bigger than the rest, right? And emphasizing that one word that really would pull your customer in and grab them, right? So that's my dog. Sorry.
So
you're doing singing great. The song of her people. Kenzie is our customer service pupper, and she is here for your enjoyment. Kelsey, did you want to add something?
Jermaine was just asking, is this strictly for online or for print as well?
For your visual assets, digital and and print, I would say that copywriting or your sales writing applies across the board. Okay, but we are going to specifically pull out, because my specialty is digital marketing. So that's my focus today, but it does apply to your other content as well, any print. All right, so this is an example of copy that I would typically see on a website, all right, or on a print piece of print marketing. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to point out some of the things that make it tricky. All right. So there is no one thing on this website other than the Whitney story that grabs your eye, right? It's a big block of text that is difficult to separate when you're reading. You really have to read the sentences go on and on, right? And it's not left side justified. So when you're reading, your eye, remember, we're on the computer or looking at things or reading things all day long now. We live in an information economy now, right? And so we're tired, our eyes are tired. And so eye tracking is something that we really consider in print as well as digital marketing. So if you picture this, when you're reading, you read across. See how wide this is? It causes a lot of eye fatigue. The left to right movements with your eye exhaust your eye, all right? The other thing that you'll notice is when you go back to the left, you kind of have to search for where the next line starts, okay? So again, more eye fatigue. So when you're doing your copy and putting it onto your assets, just think that people read down now, they skim. People do not read your content anymore. They skim it and decide if they want to go back and then read it. Initially, you skim the content. Think about a great big email that you get in your inbox, right? That is an opportunity for copywriting, okay? So you've got one big block of text, paragraph. I don't know about you, but what I do is I tag that and I say, oh, I'm going to get back to that. And then 2 weeks later, when I'm cleaning out my inbox, I'm like, it wasn't that important because clearly it's not caused an emergency in the meantime. I'm moving on, right? So think about that. I see some laughter, so I know that you guys do that too. So think about that when you're putting your content together. This applies across anything that you write for your business or any messaging that you want to get across: your emails, your website, your flyers, your trifolds, your business, everything, right? So, okay, so this is the before. This is the website that before, and this is the after. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit of what's going on here. All right, so the Whitney story still calls you out, but we've got as told by David Whitney. So we immediately know that we are building trust, right? David is looking at us directly into the camera. This is Whitney Wreath. I use this as an example. It's one of the first websites we did when we started our business. And this is a wreath company out of Machias, Maine. Great company. Check them out. All right. They sell fresh balsam wreaths and really support the Maine economy in the Down East area, especially around the winter. All right. So founder and CEO of Whitney Wreaths, right? And then you can see just pulling it out. It all began when I was wrestling with my cousin Bobby. I knew right then and there that's what I wanted to do. I started as an 8-year-old boy simply wanting to earn money for candy, but now it's a source of livelihood and joy for more people than I could have ever imagined. That tells the whole story in a couple seconds. And then you can decide, do I want to go back in and read this, right? So you've skimmed the content. You've looked at David. He seems like a cool dude. Oh, he's got a wreath. He owns a Whitney Wreath company. And this is what his story is about, right? That's copywriting, okay? So let's talk a little bit about the how, all right? And I'm going to give you some recipes because copywriting is a science. It's not something that you just pick up and do and you're an expert at it right away. You're never going to perfect copywriting. It's something that you're always going to be tweaking using all of the components that we just talked about, right? Now we're going to talk about how we apply them, okay? So before we do that, are there any questions in the chat? Kelsey? Okay, cool. Anything that you all want to clarify before we move on to the step-by-step processes for copywriting? Okay, cool. All right. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the sales writing, a sales page writing, or your sales strategy writing. This applies to a one-page website. It applies to a pamphlet. It applies to a product. It applies to a service. It applies to everything that you do in your business. And each one of these can have its own sales page writing, okay? And so there's a song as old as time copywriting formula called PASTER. And we're going to dig into that a little bit today. What PASTOR is an acronym for the following. You start with the problem that your customer is experiencing, who they are, what's the problem, and what pain does it cause, right? Then you poke it. You agitate that problem and say, and because of this, you have these frustrations of not being able to sleep or not being, you're gaining weight or whatever issue it is that you solve, you agitate the issue. You make it so that it's you make it so clear how uncomfortable and what pain it is for your customer to have that problem, right? And then you come in and hit them with the solution. All right, one moment. Work from home problems. Thank you, everybody, for understanding. The next step of that is your testimonial. And so having customers or people who have experienced the solution that your problem has solved, or the solution that your product has solved for the problem, and talking about that and the before and after is really important to have in your sales writing. Okay, so always consider getting really good testimonials. You can get video testimonials, written testimonials, however you get them. And we do have a blog on WanderWeb's website about gathering really good testimonials, what needs to be included, how to ask some questions that apply to getting really good testimonials, and ways that you can inquire and procure testimonials. So that's, we're actually refocusing on that this month. We have a theme every month at WanderWeb. And so that's one of the things that we're talking about. If you're not signed up for our weekly update, we send out a tip every Monday morning, early in the morning. And I would encourage you to just go on and sign up for our weekly update. It's like a 2-minute tip that, like, how to get a good testimonial this week, right? All right, so back to PASTOR. The next thing is offer. Really talking about your offer and presenting it as the solution to the problem. At this point, we're going to dig into how to present your offer, because I see this as a big opportunity that is overlooked a lot of the time. And if you can guess what it is, I would love to hear it. What mistake do people make with their business owners make with their offer most commonly? Yeah. So some of the answers are no call to action. Jermaine said too much about themselves. Michelle said no follow through. Jermaine said not about the customer and not making it easy to act on. Thank you, Jeffrey. Ames says, now that I got a figurative fire out, Ames, Searway, they, them, the frame maker in Waterville, Maine. I write prose. Okay, gotcha. All right, good job. Okay, so let's dig into the parts of this framework. So the first component of your sales letter is pointing out who your product is for, right? The problem that you solve and the pain associated with it. So the easiest way to do this is describe your problem, the problem that you solve, in great detail, right? The better you describe the problem in the reader's terms, the more that they believe that you have the solution to the problem even before you provide the solution. All right. So it's important at this point to use your customer's language and phrases they would use to describe the problem that they want solved. I recommend that you keep a little notepad with you when you're talking to customers and write down things that they say. Those are nuggets of gold to be used in your copy, and you can use them over and over and over. If you have an ideal customer, a customer that you love to work with, that you know you can solve their problem with your product or service, and they give you gold like that, keep it and use it over and over again. Okay, so really point out the problem by pointing out the customer, that the person that your solution solves, if that makes sense. I'm trying to go back. Okay. Kelsey, help me out here. I've got a tongue twister. The person that you provide a solution for, really point them out, right? The problem that you solve and what pain are they experiencing. Really get into that pain by agitating it, okay? That's the A. So before customers decide on a solution, they have to really believe they have a problem, right? if they don't think they have a problem, they don't want the solution. They don't care. The solution means nothing to them, right? So think about the problem that your customers are experiencing, and you really need to dig into that. All the things that keep them up at night related to the issue that they're experiencing. A great way to do this is associate a dollar cost with the problem, right? Especially for business owners. So the cost of the solution, or even better, the cost of not solving the problem, right? Because then you create that sense of urgency. So you get some bonus points if you can place a dollar cost on the failure to solve the problem here. All right. That is chef's kiss perfect if you can do that. All right. And then you get to talk about the solution. All right. So you've described the problem and amplified the consequences of not solving it. And now you paint a picture of what it is like to have a solution, right? Now it's time to share how you can solve this problem. It could be a story about how you solved the problem, or for a customer, or if you solved it for yourself, right? So storytelling is important here. All right. And it's better if you use your own solution as the solution for the problem, obviously. Okay. This is, we talked about the T, testimonial, and offering real life stories of people who have successfully made the transformation your product or service provides. All right. So let me just repeat that. Real life stories of the person or customer who has been successful with using your solution, right? So, and here I want you to remember that people are not buying your product. They are buying the results of your product, okay? They don't care about the how, it's about the results. They're buying the transformation that they receive from having purchased your product. That's your focus here. So be clear about the results and not how you get the results. All right, they don't care. They do not care about how they got the results. You know, you can say my customized 5-step framework led them through to this result, but they don't really care as much about the 5-step framework as they do about the transformation related to the framework. Okay. And that's where we get into what I asked you earlier. What's the biggest mistake that I see made is describing the offer. All right. This O, the offer is, and a lot of you got it. Tell your customers exactly what they're going to get, but don't focus on how you deliver it. Focus on the results that they get from the deliverables. Okay. So always tie your product back to the transformation and benefits that the buyers will receive. Make it about your customer, right? So a lot of you really had that. Okay. So as you go through and say, you've got a 5-step framework, your first step might be, you get 1 hour with me every week, one-on-one, and we can talk about X, Y, and Z. A better way to frame that would be one-on-one advising on your specific problem, right? Or you, and if you can point out what the problem is, right? That's even better, right? Because that's flipping it from the customer's lens, okay? And then the last of it is, what do you want them to do, right? And this is another opportunity that is often overlooked, is we go through all of this work, creating this great content, talking about your product, and then you don't ask them to buy it, right? This is the point that you say, buy now. Click here to buy. Less talking, more clicking. Like whatever phrasing that you want to use that's for your brand, this is where you ask. Do not be afraid to do a hard ask, right? Ask. People need to know what you want them to do, and not, please do not expect them to guess. They're never going to, all right? So they're never going to go through that framework and get to the end and say, oh, I'm going to scroll somewhere else on the webpage and find that buy now button. The buy now button needs to be right there, all right? Make it easy for them to buy, whether it's in an email with a hyperlink, whether it's on your website, whether it's on your graphics that you're sending out with a phone number or a link or a code that they can scan to get into your website and or right to your sales page or right to the offer. Make it easy, all right? And make it clear. So that's the anatomy of a sales pitch with copywriting. that can be used on your website for each product that you offer in the product write-up. It can be used in your emails. It can be used on your graphics. This is a framework that works. It's a proven framework that has been proven over time. And it's a great reference to go back to make sure that you've got all those components. Okay, so just remember PASTOR. Kelsey, after today, will be sending out these slides. And so you'll have this to refer to. It's a PDF to refer to. And I would recommend you just hang on to it. And just, again, remember that framework. Copywriting is a science. So following a process is really, really important. Okay. So what we didn't talk about yet is social media, right? Writing for social media. So we talked about long form writing, which that PASTOR formula works for your longer form. But how do you get somebody to act on social media? All right. How do you meet your goals on social media? And first of all, I would recommend with social media, reverse engineer what your goals are. So sometimes likes, follows are not necessarily your goal, right? Your goal might be to send them to a specific page on your website or a specific piece of content on your blog, right? It depends on what your goal is, and be thinking about that before you start to write your copy. Anytime you start writing copy, but you don't know where you're going, you're not going to get anywhere, right? So think about what you're trying to achieve. So in the PASTOR formula, you would think about what's your call to action, right? Is it to buy a product? Is it to send them to an email list? What is your call to action, right? And then you make the steps to get them there. But start with your goal and then reverse engineer the process to get you there. So I should trademark this because maybe someone else has it out there, but I call it the social media sandwich. All right. So well, I don't write a ton of social media posts, but my team does now. When we write social media posts, we use this sort of formula. The first thing that you need to do on your social media is catch the attention of the scroller, right? So they're scrolling through Facebook, Instagram, whatever, right? You got to catch their attention. Whether that is a question or like attention entrepreneurs or hey coffee lovers, right? Something along those lines to catch their attention. Something that will make them stop and read the next line. Remember, the first line's job is to get them to the next line. That's it. So you want to catch their attention so they stop their scroll and read your content. The next is you say all your things. Say the things that you want to say, right? Your pitch, your information, whatever it is that you want to share, right? The guts of your content, and then ask them to do something. So remember, we talked about the importance of the response, right? That like the offer, you need to ask them to do something. Otherwise, they don't know to do it. Okay. So what are some of the things in social media that you could ask people to do? Drop it in the chat. Yeah. So Michelle said, click here, sign up now. Yeah, there's so many options. Join our group, comment, like, drop an emoji, vote, right? If you want, do you like pink or blue on this example of a new t-shirt that we're launching, right? If you like pink, drop a happy face emoji. If you like blue, drop a devil emoji. I don't know. You know what I mean? But just engage people, tell them what to do. Your job is to get them to do something from having read that post. All right. And whatever that something is has to lend to your overarching business strategy, right? So be thinking about that. No more just posting to post. This is work, right? We're doing this for work. And so really strategically focusing on those posts and what the goal of the post is, and then asking for that result. All right. So if you can get someone to comment or like, that's great. Super, the gold standard on social media, if you're looking to enhance your social media optimization and get in front of more customers, is to have people comment, right? And start a conversation. Ideally, what happens is say on LinkedIn, you ask a question, right? And comment below on what you find. And the best practice is to have someone start a conversation that happens in a thread in the comment section from their followers, right? If you can do that, you have just mastered social media and won the game. It's hard to do, but that's what LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, when that starts to happen, their algorithm perks up and takes notice. All right. So copywriting lends to a lot of things. All right. So the social media sandwich, something we teach and something I encourage our clients to do when we meet with them through SBDC. Moving on to some other tools. All right. Remember, this is a reference. You can go back to it. And I know we're moving through content pretty quickly, but we only have an hour. I could talk about copywriting for weeks. It's super fun. It's exciting. And also just a word from the wise, you're going to fail. Like, you're going to put some copy out there that's going to die on the vine. It's not going to do great. It's a lesson learned. Okay, my customer wasn't attracted to that. How do I tweak it to get them to be attracted to it? It doesn't mean you're a bad copywriter. It doesn't mean that you don't know what you're doing. It means that you're learning and you're tweaking and you're refining. And that is just part of owning a business, right? Continuous improvement of the things, your offers and your services. I don't know any successful businesses that have not refined their offer over time, right? Nike is not selling the same shoes that they were 20 years ago. Okay. All right. So this is my favorite copywriting tip is a swipe file. And so what I recommend is, if you ever see anything that in writing that is appealing to you, you think it's funny, you think you think it's interesting, it made you click, save it to a file and use that for inspiration. All right. So here's some examples of things you can save for inspiration for your own content. You could save headlines. You could save a website landing page. You could save a product description, an email that really resonated with you, or social media captions. Those are just some examples of things that you can save as references to use moving forward. One thing that I like to do is we really like to inject humor into our posts and our content at WonderWeb. And so whenever I see something that's funny, I add it to a keep file that goes to all the team. The team has access to it. So when they write, they can be like, I need to add a little zhuzh, and they just go through and they can then check off the joke that they used so that it's on brand. Even if I'm not the one writing it, it stays on the WonderWeb brand, right? Because it's a joke that I thought was funny and that I know my customers would like. Because I only want to work with people that think what I think is funny, because I spend a lot of time laughing at myself and I want them to do that as well. Okay, so that swipe file is so important, and it makes your life easier. And I am all about easy. As entrepreneurs, who has time to go write something from scratch every single time, right? Leverage the content that you have, reuse it, repurpose it, use inspiration. Follow blogs for people that do what you do and that do it really well. And definitely use that content as inspiration for content that you can provide, because they're successful and having had that provided that content. And so it doesn't hurt to use that as some inspiration for what you could provide to your customers if you have the same customer base. Okay. All right. Swipe it like it's hot. And I like this one. This is mostly related to websites, but the 3-second rule. So these are some frameworks that you could use right on this slide. I help whichever customer that you deal with, be, do, have, create, whatever result that you like, or do, or whatever result your product or service creates, without, or how you make it easy for them, right? So it's that simple, like, hey, what do you do? And this is your spiel. Like, I'm Corey, I own a web design business, and we combine websites and SEO to help businesses scale, right? So that's because, it's so hard to know all the things. So we take the digital piece off their hands. So that's an example of the transformation, talking about the transformation, right? And what my client's problem is typically at WonderWeb is, you're a busy business owner and you don't have time to know all the things. We know those things, so we can do those things for you, right? Okay. So the 3-second rule, can someone realize what you do, who you do it for, and why it's important in 3 seconds or less? And then here's what I do. And yes, it's awesome. Like you really want to put it out there, right? So use this content to establish, if you're looking for X, Y, and Z, then you are in the right place. Those are things that you could use in your copy, right? That would suck someone in, right? You can use a mixture right now. Remember, paragraphs, bullets, points, emphasis, and bold in your copy. If you have a different approach to people in your industry, you can very briefly state that. But beef up the section of your about section from this perspective, right? This is great for your about section, because your about section is a very often overlooked sales opportunity. Often I see in about sections, or when people talk about themselves, they talk about themselves from the framework of what they do, right? Instead of the results that they provide for their customer with their expertise and how it applies to that. Okay, so just flip the script a little bit to, instead of I have 20 years of experience to doing X, Y, and Z, you could say, because I have 20 years experience, I can very easily figure out what you need without a lot of time spent on your end, right? So that's sort of flipping it from the customer, from your perspective of how great you are to how great your solution is in a way that makes it easy for your customer. And don't be afraid to reference all the crappy things that your customers hate, right? Just going back, like poke that problem, agitate that problem, and then emphasize that they'll no longer have to put up with it once they start working with you, because of all the amazing things they can look forward to. Emphasize those, right? Even better if they're actual client results. Okay. Remember, in copy and in sales, people think with their hearts, right? And then they justify later with logic. So hit them in the feels, right? Michelle just laughed. I love that. Thank you, lady. All right. Headlines. Headlines are important in copy. Okay. So these are some formulas to help you with just writing simple headlines, right? It's Mad Libs for copy. Okay. So I'm including that for you. When you print it out later, go ahead and use it. But it's a very easy way to get people moving on into your copy. Just take these and repurpose and reuse them. You can use them in your emails. You can use them on your website. Use it on your business card. You can put it on your business card along the top, right? There's so many different ways you can use this content. And once you write it and it resonates with your customer, use it over and over and over again. Remember that it's familiar to you, but it's not familiar to them. Okay. So if you say something to someone 8 times, 8 months apart, pretty much until the 7th or 8th time, it's going to sound like newer content, right? So, or newer information. So don't be afraid to repurpose what's working and just keep hitting them with the same brand message. That's your brand. Okay. Once you know it works, use it. Use your brand voice. Okay. So that's a lot of content we talked about. Those are a lot of tips and tricks for copywriting. And there's some books that I typically recommend. And I love to recommend these 2 books. I recommend them when I meet with clients through SBDC. I purchase these books for the people on my team, and I purchase them for many of our clients as well. So these are 2 separate books that I recommend for very different reasons. The first one is Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. You can get this on audio. It's fine. Get it on audio if you like to listen to books instead of sitting down and reading them. This is a book that will change the way that you think about appealing to your customer and getting in your customer's head and understanding storytelling and how it applies to sales. All right. And how it applies to providing a solution. Interesting read. It's going to change the way you do business. All right. I love this book. I think it's like $7.99 on Amazon. Best investment. So this is a book that it's more of a mindset book and a thought leadership book. And so again, audio books are fine. If you're someone that really likes to keep books for reference, this isn't one necessarily that you need to do that with. You can listen to it, get the concepts, and then execute them. Okay. And change the way that you think about storytelling and talking about your business. The other book I would recommend, these are both related to copywriting, okay? So this Building a Story Brand is learning your customer and how to appeal to them, telling a story that will appeal to them, okay? And then the other book that we recommend is How to Write Copy That Sells, this book. This is a book I recommend that you have in a paper copy, all right? So if you're gonna keep something on hand for when you're writing copy as a reference guide, this is a good book for that. All right. So for example, it's a small book, not a big book. And once you read it, it will change the way that you write your copy, but then you can go back and review it. Like, I need to write bullets and I can't remember, what the rules are for writing something that's really compelling in a bulleted list of benefits of my product. Right. And so you can just go in and refer to this. So again, this is a book that I purchased for my team, as well as many of our clients, as a gift, because it's so beneficial. I also recommend it through SBDC when I do advising consistently. Okay. All right. So the next reference that I will share with you this is just a graphic on 10 ways to use your content. And this is our lovely Kelly, our content director at WanderWeb. So these are the types of things that we send out in our Monday morning tips. A Monday morning tip might be, here's 10 ways that you can repurpose your content this week, right? Or as a reference. So it's a quick tip for something that you can use as a reference in your business. Our mission at WanderWeb is to help businesses grow. And so we provide content like this at no cost to our mailing list. And I would encourage you to pop on it. If you don't like it, you can always unsubscribe, but it's really good content, very simple and action oriented, that you can use on a regular basis. And so the way that you can subscribe to that is just go to our website and sign up for free tips. Okay. The other reference that we have for you is digital marketing advising is available until we've got 2 more days, but we do have advisors available now through SBDC that are absolutely wonderful. And they've been working with us, the specialty advisors, and they're present for the sessions that we give. So they have picked up a lot of information organically. It's been a benefit to them as well, because as we talk about our specialty in a very focused way, they've heard every bit that we've said to customers and SBDC clients over the past 2 years. And so even though the SBDC Specialty Advisor Program is wrapping up, the funding is done, you can still work with advisors who can advise you and refer you, okay? And each advisor, like Kelsey said earlier, specializes in different things. For example, I've got an advisor. I'm an SBDC client myself. I've had an advisor, Allison Lane, for the past 4 years. But I've met with Rainer about financial stuff, because Rainer's a financial guru and numbers are a different language to me that I don't speak, right? I've met with different advisors for different things over the years and gotten great tips. I've met with Anne about my strengths, because Anne is a strengths guru. She really understands Gallup. So just keep in mind that, even if you have one advisor, they have a network of other advisors that they can collaborate with to help you achieve your business goals. And it's free. So if you haven't signed up for an advisor yet, I would recommend it, even if it's just as an accountability coach. With that in mind, I'd love to see if anyone has questions. We have 10 minutes left. If there are any questions.
Awesome. There are a bunch of questions, so
Okay.
we will make our way through, but thank you so much, Corey. I have my email draft listing all the things that I'm going to do for the main SBDC's site. So like I said, I always learn a lot. Just to clarify this, we had a really awesome program for the last 2 years with a number of specialists. So we had Corey Zimmerman, we had Jenny Green and Kathy Fisher and Kitty Barbie. They were specialists in mostly marketing, but also accounting. And they provided additional sessions that our advisors could request time to meet with their clients. That was CARES Act funding, so we really appreciated having access to that, but unfortunately that does come to an end at the end of this month. So definitely go back and watch all of Corey's webinars on our YouTube channel, because we have all learned so much. But our advisors are still here, and like she said, they got to sit in on a lot of these meetings and learned a tremendous amount. They're constantly referencing those books in our meetings. So I was happy to see that a bunch of people were able to get those books like through their library while sitting in this webinar. So I love that access. All right, we do have a bunch of questions. So let me see. There were a couple early on that I wanted to make sure that we definitely hit on. In terms of tutorials, there were a couple questions about editing them. Do you need permission from them? Do you use their name or initials or some other version? So could you speak a little bit more about that?
Sure. Testimonials.
Yeah.
Okay. So best practice is to have a testimonial that discusses the problem that was solved, the before and after, right? So before I had this problem, after I had, life is perfect, right? That's the best practice for a testimonial. You can edit them. What I typically do is show that I've edited it by doing an ellipsis in the writing, right? So you can summarize them, because you really want to keep your testimonials short and concise, right? So honestly, awesome solution. I now sleep at night. If pulled out of a long paragraph is a great testimonial. Best practice for testimonials is video goes the furthest, right? The next is make it as personal as possible. So when you're getting a testimonial, ideally you should have an image of the person, if you don't have a video, right? With their name, how they are as an ideal client. So 50, mom of 2, and lifelong learner or something, right? If that applies to what you're trying to achieve. And then the ideal is to have a phone number of the customer, if they will let you, so that people know that they can call. So testimonials are very, very important because they address social proof, and people that are reading your content will trust that person if you've really done it well, will trust that person almost as much as if it was a personal recommendation to them. So adding all of those, anything you can do to personalize it is great. There are some customer bases that have to be confidential, and in those cases you may need to get some sort of consent process, signed consent, in order to use their information, even if they've given you verbal permission. I would recommend that because of some laws around confidentiality, anything to do with medical treatments particularly.
And so like the main SBDC, all of our advising is confidential. So all of the quotes that I use for tutorials, I say a recent SBDC client. And so we use quotes that have come generally from the last year's worth of work that we've done, but we don't specify any distinguishing information about that person.
Right.
So that's just how we are able to use that, but also get away with providing that confidentiality. So little user's choice.
Maybe I add to that is Allison had a couple years ago featured my business as a success story. And so I had to sign so many documents, like releasing, right? And I had to sign visual, physical, so they really are very confidential. But yes, definitely, if you should get a consent or you're concerned about it, just get a consent.
Yeah, and so our client highlights, our success stories are always approved by the client ahead of time. So it's usually the advisor suggests it, we reach out, we confirm that that's what you want. Most of the time I write the stories, but not always. And then we reach back out to the client. We make sure that they approve the actual story that has already been written. And then there's a release form that is signed. And that is the only way that you would ever end up on our Instagram or with a quote that had your name included. And again, we would always have that approved by you directly before we did that. So, well, again, user's choice, choose your own adventure. Going back a little bit, when you were talking about the pastor formula, Laurel was asking, would that be adaptable for nonprofits and asking for monetary support?
Yeah. I mean, think about the benefits to the business that's donating. There's lots of benefits that provide businesses while doing good. And so some of the things, the benefits you might want to point out is the marketing support that you give them, getting them in front of people. So it may not be as typical as a sales page, but still, you have your own version of Pastor for sure.
Yeah. Sorry, I got distracted while reading a question. But I thought so. So I said, I assume yes in the chat, but just wanted to confirm that. I see a question from Jeffrey about the context of using he has a holistic healthcare company, and in terms of client privacy, we kind of hit on that, but how to convey trust in copywriting, I think, is the question.
So in your case, Jeffrey, right? In your case, Jeffrey, you may not be able to use the customer or the client's name, but you could say back pain, mom with back pain, age 52 or something like that. As specific as you can get while being very vague, right? Without releasing anything confidential. Obviously, you have to be careful about if you only treat one back pain patient or person, then you can't do that. But something along those lines could work. But yes, that would convey trust. The other ways that you can convey trust are with your images. And there's lots of science, and Kelsey was talking about this last week, around images and using images. So for you, I would definitely have some images on your website that show you in your element and looking warm and approachable and directly into the camera.
Yeah, and I can imagine that if you were writing blogs or something along the lines of describing that problem and who the audience was, and then how your health services fix that problem, that's going to develop that trust also. So you kind of stick to the formula. This could be very versatile.
Yeah.
Awesome. So Jeffrey, let us know if there was more to that or not. We got lots of thank yous coming in, lots of advisors here saying thank you as usual. One other question that came in earlier was about website length. So it was when you were showing the examples of the websites, and Michelle is working on her website. It's work in progress. Do you think that a one-page website is more in line with the attention span that is currently taking over the world?
Yeah, so we all have short attention spans now for sure. We're all busy and multitasking. My answer is it's whatever your customer wants, right? So I would start with keeping it as simple as your customer wants and no more complex. But if it makes sense to have a one-page website because it's a simple offer and it's just, then yes, absolutely. But it's really around the customer journey and where they are at the different phases and what would make sense to your particular customer. And so typically when we work with customers to design websites, our customers, we do a discovery, and we start with, what is your business trying to achieve? What are the problems in your business? And then let's learn all about your ideal customer and then once we understand the business's goals, we really get into the customer's head. It's not really about the business owner anymore. It's about how we can serve their customer best so that we achieve the business owner's goals, right? So that would be my advice to you, is really get into your customer's head, ask them. You can have some sample customers also look at your content and see like, hey, critique it. You're not gonna hurt my feelings, right? If you have a couple that you trust to do that.
Awesome. Well, let us know.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, if that answers the question or not. All right. And then earlier I responded to this, and now I can't remember exactly what we were talking about, but I believe Jeffrey was asking about A/B testing. I think that we were talking about the copy that worked stronger, but I can't remember exactly. Oh, and there's a long hour. Perfect. But I recently did an A/B test for the main SBDC, and the results that I got was there is no difference. They like did the same, and I didn't know what to do with that feedback.
Yeah. then it doesn't matter if they do the same, just grab the one you like, right? So A/B testing or split testing is when you trial a couple different things to a customer base and measure with the engagement, right? And so typically with A/B testing, I recommend keeping it really, really simple. And so I generally only do A/B testing with headlines or subject lines of an email, right? Or that value proposition at the top of a website. Other than that, I typically don't do a ton of A/B testing. And I do one test at a time, right? Don't send out like a huge variety or variation in test A and test B, just simple variations. And typically it's the headline or the subject line. So, and you can generally measure engagement pretty easily in your marketing software.
Yeah, all of mine I did inside of our like Facebook ad platform. So they made it very easy. So I saw a couple of people asked about the YouTube channel. I was trying to pull that up, but it automatically starts playing, and then I had to mute myself so you couldn't hear the song, but I got trapped in the cycle. So I'm going to stick that in the chat in just a second. And also when I send out the follow-up email later with the link to the recording, you just press that button and then our YouTube channel will show up on your screen in front of you. And so Kathleen says, I've saved all of your YouTube videos to watch later, Corey. So thank you for your time and knowledge. And I feel like that is an excellent way to describe how I feel. I have saved all of those. I have rewatched them. I have notes from all of them. And we are so appreciative of your knowledge. So thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And thank you to everyone else for joining us today. It is 12, so people are probably getting hungry at this point. But thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for being proactive for your small business. Keep an eye out for my follow-up email later on. Getting claps in the emojis, which I always love. Either that or Jeffrey's raising his hand, and I'm sorry, but we really appreciate you, Corey. I know we've said it a couple times, but this has been a great opportunity to learn more for everybody involved. Jeffrey's clapping, so I agree. Thank you to everyone, and hopefully we'll see you at the next session.
Thanks, everyone. This was awesome.
Awesome. Good to hear. Yeah, we heard there are a lot of very specific compliments, so I'll make sure I save the chat for this one, Corey.
Thank you. Bye, guys. Good luck.